Hi, you're watching Investor Insights, and in this video I'd like to look a little bit at deflation. Now recently I've listened to a few speeches on deflation, and one of them has really sparked a lot of debate around the place. And that being, is deflation really that bad? The person who gave that speech, Peter Schiff, has really opened my eyes to the whole concept. And maybe a lot of previous thoughts have to be adjusted, because the mentality has always been that deflation is a horrible thing to have. And even in previous videos I've always stated that deflation is a state of mind. It's just within the mindset, and the only way to get rid of it is to make people who are living in an environment, in a deflationary environment, to go out and spend. So technically there's only one place that's mired in deflation right now, and that's in Japan. And the policymakers there are now on a path of self-destruction, of infinite money printing to try and spark inflation. But all they're doing is importing inflation. That's another video in itself. But let's go back to looking at the concept of deflation. Now, deflation, by definition, is simply a negative rate of inflation. So you've got falling prices. If you think about that concept in itself, it really doesn't sound too bad, because having rising prices is a state of mind that the central bankers and policymakers want you to believe is a good thing. But technically, free market forces want deflation. The market wants cheaper prices, because technically that's how markets work. And this is something which to me has been a real eye-opener. I never really looked into that side of the equation, because my mindset has always been that deflation is bad. But now that I've heard this discussion, I can see why policymakers now want to stoke inflation and try and fight off deflation as much as they can, especially the Fed, especially countries which owe a lot of debt. And in principle, deflation makes your debt bigger. Inflation makes your debt smaller. That's in real terms. So think about this concept for 1 second. America owes $17 trillion. The interest bill on that right now at 0% is $250 billion. If rates went up, they are screwed. How can America get rid of this debt? It can't pay it back. It either borrows more money to pay the interest, and therefore making the debt even larger, or it inflationarily, if there's such a word, defaults. That is, it prints money to the tune of to the size that inflation runs wild, and therefore 17 trillion isn't really a number anymore. Now, if you don't think that that could happen, look at Zimbabwe. I mean, these guys are printing $100 trillion notes. So you can't tell me that inflation can't run wild. In Zimbabwe, now this is going back like 4 years ago, the inflation rate was 4 million% per year. You heard it right, 4 million% a year. So you don't tell me that it can't happen. It happened over there, it can happen in the States. So when the Fed, when Ben Bernanke, the two terms are interchangeable. When I say the Fed and I say Ben Bernanke, it means the same thing. When Ben Bernanke comes out and says that the Fed will do everything that it can to fight deflation, it's because it wants its debt wiped out. The Fed wants inflation. And the inflationary, again, I'm not sure about the word, path that it's taking is clearly a sign of that. It is on its path of destruction in terms of its currency and in terms of its credibility. You want to print that much money? You're going to have inflation. And it doesn't matter if that inflation is exported to China or whoever else, you're still creating inflation. So if you don't want to admit it, another country is going to suffer it and they're just going to pounce on you. But let's get back to deflation. In Japan, if you put money under your mattress, it actually gains value. I mean, how good a concept is that? If you put money under your mattress, it loses value. Why? Because inflation erodes its purchasing power. Because there's so much more paper out there that's printed, chasing the same number of goods and services that's available. The bid gets pushed up and prices go up. So your money has a lot less purchasing power. In Japan, the converse is true. Because prices are falling, therefore money, cash in itself, is the best asset class to own. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, in Japan, if you just use yourself an example, for example, if you walked into a shop and a person was selling, say for example, a video camera, and it costs $500. You look at it, you go, oh, $500, I'm not sure if I want to buy it. But now the storekeeper wants to stir up demand and it marks the camera down to $250. And you go, wow, that's cheap, I'm going to buy it. Now, what made you decide to buy the camera? Well, just take into just discount the fact that you wanted it, but what was the driving factor behind you acquiring the camera? It was the dropping in price. And what do you call a drop in price? Deflation. Now, when you have deflation, you actually stir up demand. And if you look at every piece of electronic gadgetry that you've ever heard of, the prices don't rise, the prices fall. And that's a clear sign that deflation is a good thing. Because if a computer goes up in price every year, I mean, you're not going to upgrade. You're just going to stick with the same computer until it breaks down. But computers fall in price. So therefore, the model you bought this year is going to be half the price next year because there'll be something better along the lines. And that's going to make you want to upgrade. So, as I said, deflation is actually a very powerful and a good thing. And technically, deflation is what free markets want things. Deflation is the way that free markets want to work. Prices should be falling. And it's because central bankers put the thought process within us that deflation is bad and inflation is good, that you now have a wrongful expectation and a wrong definition or an incorrect thought process about deflation itself. You're being taught that inflation is good. And if you use yourself as an example, you look at your house. Now, you don't want your house to go down in price, but technically, that's what it should be happening, because your house is going down in price if you don't contribute to it. And your house needs maintenance. Your house needs upkeeping. Your house needs constant amounts of money being poured into it just to keep it up to standard. So technically, it's deflationary. But the governments and policymakers don't want you to believe that. You're living in an environment where house prices are appreciating. Unit prices are appreciating. And that shouldn't be happening. Prices should be falling so that demand is stimulated. It's crazy. And it wasn't until this eye-opening speech that I heard that I myself have always been on the thought process that we should be fighting deflation, and I've always been bagging Japan for the deflation that it's so-called suffering. But deflation is not that bad. Deflation is actually good. It's really good. I mean, imagine you working hard all your life. Well, I shouldn't say imagine, because that's what you should be doing. You work hard all your life. You save your money. You put a lot of self-sacrifice. You underconsume so that your future consumption can be enhanced through your savings and the power of compound interest or the return on your investments that you make using all your savings. Now, what happens when the government artificially stimulates inflation or creates inflation? The free market is deflationary. That's just a fact. Even I've learned to accept that. But the central banks want inflation, basically to eradicate their debt. Now, all your savings, all your investment returns are going to vaporize because of this inflation. Now, if you let free market decide the fate of your money's fate, then not only is your savings going to be really good for you because it has more purchasing power over the long term without you doing anything. So if you put money into an investment that gives you a return, on top of your money having more purchasing power, holy crap, you are living in financial utopia. Whereas the central bankers want you to believe that it's a total opposite, it's a dystopia. Man, I think the Japanese don't have it that bad. Deflation is actually good. And when it comes for you to think about it, you purchasing a house that is falling in value, it's not such a bad thing, because your money is gaining in value, so you can use your money to upgrade the house and make it rise in value. You can add to its capital base. But that's the subject of another video. So I really don't see any problems with deflation. And if you take home the message and really think long and hard about the concept of deflation, you can't really see anything wrong with it. I can't, and I'm the biggest skeptic. So I know it's been a long video, but this has been a real eye-opener for me. And I hope that I've been able to open your eyes. But as usual, you make up your own decision. You heard the facts and you got to make up your own mind. But for the 5th, 6th, for the 10th time, deflation, not only is it half as bad as it's made out to be, deflation is a good thing. Think about this next time you go to a Myers sale or to any stock take sale that's out there.